finally over. Taylor Swift's tour ended on Sunday. And you know who the happiest person is? My 73-year-old father. Not a Swiftie. But after him, it's Travis Kelce. Listen, I'm sure he's happy to have his girlfriend home, but I'm also sure he's sick of her telling people she cleared his annual salary in a couple nights' work. That's why I stopped dating OnlyFans models. Taylor's a billionaire, but I still admire her financial restraint. She didn't use Ticketmaster's dynamic pricing model, which would have given her a much bigger cut at ticket sales. She also actually ended the tour. If I made $13 million a show, I'd be doing 2 shows a day every day like peak Siegfried and Roy. An underrated influence of the Eras Tour was on the word era itself. Its use skyrocketed since the tour was announced in late 2022. An era is defined as a distinct period of history with a particular feature or characteristic. Taylor Swift divided her concerts into distinct acts or eras representing her albums and periods of her life. This has influenced a lot of people to use the word to describe historical periods in their own lives. For example, I've seen girls on Instagram reference their bangs era, their religious era. That one usually doesn't last very long. There's the classic goth era, the pilgrim era, the overly tan balloon lip era, the Ozempic alien era, the sporty era. Eras don't have to be defined by looks. I recently ended my drinking during the week era. Or I should say, my body ended it for me. I need 2 days minimum to recover now. It's very sad. Before all this era talk, people just had phases. I've gone through all the standard phases men go through. I had the bowl cut phase, the mullet phase, the egregiously long chin beard phase. Parents love the word phase because it helps explain away their kids' bizarre behavior. Hey Lori, why is your son always talking to an imaginary bird on his hand? Let's take a look at the top 3 words to describe an amount of time. The definitions and most common uses of the words are below. Period is the most generic term to describe time, but be wary of using it with certain descriptors. That's because period also describes female menstruation. What I mean is, if you were previously overweight, don't say you had a heavy period. Or, there was a time you were misusing Adderall and other stimulant drugs, and they turned you into a raging a-hole. Don't tell people about your aggressive period. They don't want to hear about it. There's a lot of similarities between these 3 words, but as you can see, eras are typically longer and more formal. Common examples are the industrial era and the post-war era. We're also about to re-enter the Trump era, but maybe we never left. The Taylor Swift effect evolved the use of the word era to now include comparatively less significant periods of time, like Bridget's blue eyeshadow era and Larry's sleeveless tee era. It's one of the many interesting things about language, how it's always evolving. It can be funny to co-opt a word that was traditionally used to describe important historical periods and use it instead for times in your own life. For example, the Depression era is defined by the Great Depression beginning in 1929, the worst economic crisis in modern history, featuring widespread unemployment, poverty, and misery. Millions once proud, hardworking men and women reduced to begging for scraps of food on the streets, like feral animals. And then there's Lauren's Nick era, which is when she dated 2 guys named Nick at the same time. Here's a smorgasbord of words to describe different periods of time. The big 3 we just reviewed and are on the left side. Stage, chapter, and episode are also popular. Season has been hot the past few years, with people using it to describe a period of time when something is popular and in favor. You know about ski season and bikini season, but what about tens only season? A phrase made popular by the social media personality Dan Bennett. Let's take a deeper dive in some of these words, beginning with the noun stanza. Stanza has deep roots in poetry and originates from Italian. The reason I'm highlighting this word is that stanza is moving more into the mainstream. You can use stanza to describe any fixed period of time. You're seeing it most prominently in sports and games contexts. You hear sports announcers occasionally reference what happened in the second stanza of a game instead of the second quarter, period, or half. Next, we have the noun interlude. An interlude is a brief period of time that comes in the middle of something. It traces its roots to Latin and medieval theater. Interlude originally referred to a short play or performance between larger acts. You still see it at concerts today, where the lead singer takes a break and the lead guitarist or drummer takes over for an interlude. You can use interlude whenever there's a change or break in the middle of some larger period of time. The next word, sojourn. I like this word a lot. Very underrated, and it's fun to say. Yeah, it can come off as a little highfalutin and douchey, but it really depends how you say it. A sojourn is a temporary stay or visit. It comes from the old French word séjourner, meaning to stay or dwell temporarily. What about that French accent? That wasn't AI, that was all me. The next word is eon. This is a cool sounding 3-letter word that packs a punch. An eon is a really long period of time. It's so long that you can't even measure it. People love to exaggerate when they're describing how long things take, so this is a really valuable word. You can wait eons on hold trying to get through to your bank, or your wife might take eons to get ready to go out. The next word is zeptosecond. Like I mentioned before, people love to exaggerate how long things take. Well, here's the other side of the spectrum. A zeptosecond is the smallest unit of time ever measured. It's equal to 1/trillionth of a billionth of a second, or 10 to the power of negative 21. The smallest amount of time ever measured was 247 zeptoseconds, which was the amount of time the Hawk Dua girl was famous for. Other small units are the more well-known millisecond or nanosecond. The femtosecond says it's only 1/quadrillionth of a second, but men who date women know a femtosecond is actually 20 minutes long. The next word is juncture. Juncture originally referred to where two objects meet or join, but later expanded to include the now most popular use of a point in time. Juncture is often used to describe important, higher stakes point in time where a decision needs to be made. As a result, you'll often see the adjectives critical or important in front of it to really hit that home. The next word is respite. Yes, it's pronounced respite and not respite. Respite is a short break or delay, but it's often associated with relief from difficult and unpleasant things. The third example refers to a respite for caregivers. Respite care is a big thing. It's government-sponsored in some countries. Respite care, from what I understand, is where you give a caregiver who regularly cares for kids or an old person some respite and let them drop the kids or old person somewhere while they go out for margaritas, or something like that. The next word is hiatus. Hiatus is a break or interruption from something. It's usually temporary, but you can always go on an indefinite hiatus to mess with people. A hiatus originated as a reference to physical gaps and openings. You can see in the third example it references a hiatus in a manuscript after some pages were torn out. However, nowadays you'll almost always see hiatus used in reference to time and activities. The next word is interregnum. I know that sounds like an invasive medical procedure, but this is a $7 slobber knocker of a word. Interregnum is basically a combination of the well-known Latin word inter, means between, and regnum, which means reign or kingdom. That is basically the definition now, which is the period between the end of one government or ruler's reign and the beginning of the next one. Interregnum has brought a note recently to also refer to any interval of time between two periods of activity or states of being. Our final word to describe periods of time is secondment. It's a great sounding word and refers to a period of time when an employee is moved from their regular role to a temporary assignment, usually for professional development, skill sharing, or because the company tells them to. Like perhaps the company is short-staffed somewhere and needs to send the employee over to that department to help temporarily. Alright, well that's it for Wordrich this week. Apologies to the Taylor Swift fans that got duped into a vocabulary lesson. Like and subscribe even if you don't mean it. And until next time.